And Tony is smart. Questions, comments?
Wow.
Tony?
Ek kan nie Engels praat nie.
No, in English.
Ons het gehoor wat hy sê vir ons alles wat ons weet. Die probleem wat ek sien is Baardsvorskor en Sasol. Ons sit met 'n dringend kunsmisprobleem nou. Dit help nie oor 5 jaar. Kom en hy sê vir ons, hulle dit gedoen, die Baardsvorskor, Sasol.
You want to take 3 questions and then you've got that, right?
Yeah, I think I got it.
Thanks.
I've got 3 questions. I think then you can take another 2, then I can come with my 3 questions.
Thank you, Chairperson. Andy, I'm afraid that and of course, thank you very much. Let me say so. Thank you very much. And you drew up all these things. And in the beginning, I thought, well, the problem of economists is to create problems and not bring solutions. But somewhere you came up with some solutions that are helpful. And thanks for that. I never thought economics has got solutions. But there is a problem that you people who are closer to the government take very lightly. You especially involved in advising the government on the land issue. And in fact, thanks for you actually said the government has let down the black people, the black farmers. You said so at some stage, and I think it's on record now, spreading as such. But our worry is, black people have not been given the land in this country. No. When you have land, you must have
Title deed.
title deed. You must have the title. We don't have. That's not the land given to us. And from time to time, there is harassment on the very same beneficiaries of the process of the government. Harassment comes from the government. They want money when they have not helped these people to produce maximally. They played no role at all, financial and skills-wise. They are at a distance. And that's the burden. And of course, in partnership with that is the highest rate of crime that affects the farming community. Killings, the stealings of their properties. I mean, this is not on. And you have the police service, you have even the army. Well, the army sitting in the barracks is doing nothing. If the armies can go around the farms, then criminals will run away. But, the government pays the army, the police, who are not saving the community at all. And if we are not looking, if they are not doing, attending to this country will soon be under anarchy. And of course, we have already been impoverished by the way the government operates.
One more question. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thanks, Wandile, for a very insightful presentation. And actually, all the presentations we got this morning are quite informative. I hope we'll be able to have access to the slides if possible, particularly from my side. I just have a quick question. You spoke about the rollout of blended finance by government in June, I think you said. And I'm just wondering, how is government thinking in terms of what vehicle are they going to use in dispersing that, considering that land bank is in the state that's in, and I don't think its problems are going to be solved anytime soon. Thanks.
Sorry? My friends from the
Thank you, Chairperson. One, I just wanted to find out about the VAT on wheat. Isn't there some way that you guys can, because of the Ukraine and Russian war and the lack of wheat, in order to stimulate our farmers to grow more wheat? We don't want to grow wheat anymore because of the VAT on wheat. So maybe you guys can discuss it with the powers that be. Thank you.
Okay, but you want to deal with those questions?
Yes. Thanks, and thank you so much for all of these questions. I'm taking notes because some will need to be communicated back. But I will begin with the wheat story. Because it also hits the work that I'm responsible. I'm the Commissioner of the South African International Trade Administration, which is myself and about 8 colleagues, usually tasked with deciding on tariffs of the products that are imported or exported. So the level of protection or increasing tariffs is the only instrument that I think for South Africa we could use to somewhat provide a bit of an incentive for production. But of course, over the past couple of years, we've had an active wheat tariff since about 2014. And it hasn't really stimulated much, at least in central parts of the country. But for the Western Cape, I think the guys have seen a bit of a benefit onto that. But I don't think that there's a lot in the medium term of the instruments that we think they can be effective on supporting the production beyond that tariff one. Because if we go on a VAT side, there is also a consumer welfare issue that we need to be thinking about at this point in South Africa, especially with the rise in fuel and stuff, which is where I think the war makes conditions difficult, because it's difficult for producers, but also it's as equally difficult for fellow South Africans who are buying the basic food stuff. But the point we're raising is very important. I would say, though, for the immediate term, the good benefit is that there is sufficient supply for wheat in South Africa for the year and going into the beginning of next year. We've had conversation with major food processing companies and the bakeries, and it looks like they had already procured some from the likes of Australia, Canada, and the others, which will fill the gap. But the point you're making remains, how do you stimulate wheat in some of the areas within the Free State and the other parts? That's a point for reflection. I don't want to just give it any answer, but in the immediate term, on top of mind for me, there are few instruments at this point. And if I were to move in that way to use it on the blended finance, the blended finance vehicle, you will remember last year, there was R1 billion that was done with IDC, but of course it has a lot of difficulties for a farmer to go to IDC then and try to access that money, because they charge you with their criteria and the agro-processing. You drive all the way up to Joburg to chat with them, and you come back, and I'm not very happy with the response. And they haven't managed to actually distribute all of it, I believe. So the instruments that the government will be using this time around is the usual banks, the 4 major banks of South Africa. So they will, if you speak with the regional ones, they will know, and as well as the processes. But again, it will still be of a particular quantum that they will be able to distribute in the first leg. But it makes a difference than nothing, I guess, but more can be done. Let me move to Omdani, and then I'll close with Doc. Omdani, you're right, in the past, we use, right now in South Africa, we utilize about 2.2 million tons of fertilizer a year. And you look back into history, maybe around about 1986 or so, we were importing about 20-30% of the fertilizer that we were using in the country. Right now, South Africa imports 80% of its annual fertilizer consumption, and 98% of all of the agrochemicals that you are using. So you're pretty much exposed to all of the global shocks that you would see, as well as the currency shocks. Fourscore is like many of the other SOEs, it faced its challenges with its operations to an extent also in Richards Bay, so it's not performing optimally. But SASO is performing optimally, but of course it's focused on the other things that are beyond the fertilizer side. But I think the other constraint for South Africa is what I was saying, it's a constraint for the US, in a sense that you're still having to import some minerals that they mix with. But I think the performance from the current state can be improved. So yes, Fosco has not done South Africa proud over the past couple of years. It has gone down in its performance. But I think the other thing, again, on NIC and the other farmer associations, as well as us at this is another opportunity to say, given the risks on the people that are brought by geopolitics on agrochemicals, what can we do as South Africa to make sure that at least we do have a portion of reserves that secures and cushions us? And then that's the pressure that as an agricultural community at large we could add on saying, look at Fosco, look at the others and try to improve their capacity. But at the moment, the sentiment is as you explained. That's all time for that. Doc, you are 100% correct. The state has tended to hoard land from black farmers since we had the proactive land acquisition strategy in 2006. Because my interpretation of some, there was a sentiment that big government was buying land, giving it to black farmers, some black farmers were selling it back to white farmers, and then now you had this spending that was rising. But if you look at the racial ownership of land, you are not seeing much of the progress that was happening on that side. But that shouldn't have been the instruments. The instrument should have been to look maybe what Namibia is doing and have a first right of refusal and say if we have given somebody and then they don't want to farm, they want to take it away. Can the state then be the first purchaser of that land and deal with all of those things? And I think that should have been linked with the beneficiary selection criteria, because it begins now, for example, where if you look at the land people benefited on redistribution. Firstly, over 60% of them, or in fact over 70% according to research by Woodhall and the others at the University of Western Cape, are men. Black men that stay in 17, rich and all of that. People that are working on the land, they're not tended to benefit. Women have also been sidelined and not in land reform in South Africa. Young people have also been sidelined. So those are some of the things that the beneficiary selection criteria tries to do. But I mean, I have to be honest, the criteria, we can write it in a book. The people that make decisions are the people that were making decisions on implementation at the provincial levels for the past 27 years. So for them to re-undertake themselves into the new framework that is put in place, it's going to take time of adjustment. But it's still better than continuing without any guidelines on who benefit from redistribution. The land agency, and you saw also even on the linked ANC papers, those papers of the ANC talk about title deeds. That tells you that the thinking not only in those that are deployed in government, but the politicians themselves, and literally how they have changed their thinking onto that. So that has been a fault line. And in fact, for many of the land reform funds that are a failure, it's not only a failure of people can't farm, but it's also the scarcity of capital, which in part is impacted by the poverty of race, the fact that the state offers no post-transfer support. Secondly, it offers no title deed, so you can't really even use that for collateral and the other things. And then you get this constant harassment, which by government officials at the provincial level, which you can't really invest on. So there is a recognition of those, and on paper, there's the corrective measures that were put under the land agency. But I think not to put you in any place of expectation. The adjustments of that and the change of the mindset is going to take some time. But the points are well taken and you are correct. Thanks.
I just want to say, the arrogance of these officials was also brought to the attention of the President during when he discussed, when he spoke at our AGM. But thank you very much. And I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for what you're doing for agriculture and for South Africa, for the farmers. That's the last question, sorry. That's the last question.
Thank
Ron. Thank you so much for the opportunity on this. It's my first time here. My name is Sibusile Matlangu. I drove all the way from Stoffberg. Stoffberg in Limpopo. I've got 3 questions. One is related to the water use license. And the other one is about the oils. And the other one is about the land agents that you spoke about just now. Yes. The issue of the land agency and the land in general. I did hear that there are people who are having pieces of land and government and so forth. Do we have the actual audit, land audit, to say how much can the government give out before we go far? And 2, what is the progress? Because I did hear the president talking about the water use license, some transformation there and stuff. What is the progress there? And just out of interest, the last question is on the audit. Are we the net importer or export of oil, other than the Ukraine being maybe 40 or 60%? Where do we stand as a country? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. On the water licensing and infrastructure in general, yes, the intention is to shorten all of the regulations into about 60 days, as the President was saying. But there's still some work that is being done on high regulations, so you are not seeing the benefit of that as yet. The hope is that in the next couple of months, I can't give you the exact timeline, but the most important thing is that it is there on their drafting documents. They are changing that. The other thing that caused a bit of a disruption in the water licensing is that you had a changing of the ministries. Again, right after the president had announced that, and the new ones tend to also want to review all of the work that was done by the previous one. And the next thing, of course, within the water is also the infrastructure in the country in general. That remains a challenge. So I think you will see the results of the benefits of the shortening of the water licenses soon. And of course, on the land reform front, the other thing that had happened, many people that were there come and then were not going along with the water licensing. So that's also one of the things that will be corrected. Land agency, has there been any land audit? There hasn't been a comprehensive land audit in South Africa in general. The one that government issued in 2013 was incomplete and had a lot of these hearings, which, if you read the work done by Professor Johan Kestin, Nick Finger, myself, and Stellenbosch, we pointed out some of the key things there. But the state has audited what it has, which is the 9 million hectares that I was talking about, which they done with the help of INSICA and the ARC. But not all of it is agricultural. And some of it has people that are already there. It's not all vacant, but it's about formalizing and ensuring that the right person is there, and then for some of the lands that there's no people trying to see if allocation can be made onto that. That's what the agency will be. And the agency, by the way, let me clarify this, is not going to be one of the government departments or be reporting to the department. It will almost be working like a SENPAC, where it's a different institution that is on the side, and it's ran by both private and public sector people, at least at a board level, and then it has its new operation. So it offers a bit of hope because it's not going to be linked with politics. And the agency will not make policy. It's an executing agency. Policy remains with the government. On the vegetable oils, South Africa is the net importer of vegetable oils. We usually import about 500,000 tons of palm oil and then a year, and then we import about 120,000 tons of sunflower oil a year in general. This year, we have the second largest sunflower crop, up 45% from last year. So I think we won't be needing as much imports of sunflower. But of course, last Friday, Indonesia put a ban on the exports of palm oil, which as a country we're using a lot for food processing. So that is also one of the key issues that will continue to lift vegetable oil prices, which is why in supermarkets they are rationing the portions and vegetable oil prices will remain high, again also for the next 2 years or so. That's the challenge that we have. But all the folks in the Western Cape are also planting the record level area of canola, so that assists us. We won't have a shortage of oil, but vegetable oil prices will remain high for a while. Thanks.
Thanks, Wandile. Once again,
I'm going to ask all the, before we introduce Louis, I'm going to ask all the speakers just to come here for a quick photo because some of them want to leave. Isn't it?